Good evening. Welcome to the September 17th, 2024 Gray Town Council meeting. This meeting is being held in person and online. People may join the meeting online using the link above or watch the meeting live online and call in during public comment using the phone number above. Opportunities for public comment will occur during the public comment on non-agenda items, any public hearings that we may have, or during council discussions on old or new business. I'll start by taking the roll. Ann?
Present.
Krista?
Present.
Mike Johnson is with us. He had to step out for a moment. He is present. I'm Dan McGuire, Chair of the Council. To my right is Michael Foley, our Town Manager. If you'd all rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the September 3, 2024 regular Town Council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second?
So I'll second.
Moved Krista, seconded Ann. Are there any adjustments to the minutes?
I just have one tiny one. On page 4, under my Councilor Gass, the last word of the last sentence should be, or the last two words, I guess, should be town committees, not local interviews. I think I was saying that we needed to fill vacancies on our committees, was basically my point. And I don't recall talking about interviews.
Okay.
That's it.
We can make that adjustment.
Krista, do you have any?
Oh, sorry. No, I have none. Thank you.
I have, let's see, I have a couple of little ones. For approval of the minutes, the result says, it says unanimous consent, but I think it needs to say passed by unanimous consent because it doesn't say whether it was kind of voted up or down. So I just think that needs to be added there. And also a little further down,
So it says that the result was unanimous consent. What was it that you wanted it changed?
just passed by unanimous consent.
So passed unanimous
Yeah,
consent. Okay.
yeah, passed. by- And
Are you talking about when we adjourned?
no.
Oh,
This approval of the minutes.
On the
Approval
minutes.
of the minutes.
Oh, I'm just missing it. Okay.
It also, it probably should say that at that one too, just be consistent there.
Oh, I see.
The other one that I just would like to clarify a little bit was under public comments on non-agenda items, where it says Lacey joined virtually to discuss concerns about the process and the outcome of the previous meeting, rather than just conduct. It's on package page 4 near the bottom. And then I think just due to technical difficulties,
So you wanted to say concerns?
about the process and outcome of the previous meeting,
Okay.
I think is a little clearer than
Yeah.
just conduct.
Just a point on that, I know there was some concern about public comments. Well, Robert's Rules of Order actually refers to simply mention that a person came and spoke. And so we were planning, so there is no misinformation. I'll read the thing from Britt, and I had been researching that recently. So there's no misunderstanding of what the,
Well,
it says in Robert's Rules of Order, it says the name and subject of a guest speaker can be given, but no effort should be made to summarize their remarks. And
Okay.
so we've made an effort to summarize their remarks, and now there's a conflict.
Are you talking in this particular minutes or in prior?
In minutes in general.
Okay.
And so we were going to resort to going forward, to follow what Robert's Rules of Order says is the name and subject of a guest speaker can be given, but no effort shall be made to summarize the remarks.
Yeah, I'd like to have some conversation about that, I think, before we just make the change. I don't know how others feel.
I haven't reviewed the rules.
Yeah, we have a electronic record of the meeting, a video record of the meeting. And so there was a concern expressed by a member of the community that we didn't summarize someone's remarks. And here we have a situation where we've made an effort to try to summarize some remarks, and there's concerns and conflict.
I don't think there are concerns in conflict, that there's just a small adjustment to clarify. I don't see.
Well, that's going to happen every meeting. Yeah.
Well, but I also, I guess I don't have a problem with that myself, but I think.
So you
that-
want us to have the clerk who takes the minutes summarize comments of members of the public?
I think we have to have a discussion about it to decide what we want to be in there. For instance, in the past, we've always had a summary of what was stated. So in other words, we knew what the topic was that the person was talking about. If they made some statements, we would put those things in our minutes. We do have a video recording, but without some guidance as to what the person said, you could say, Dan McGuire spoke, but I think you need to say, what it was I spoke about. Because why would you bother to go look at the video recording if it just has the person's name?
I think we could record, when people are making comments on agenda items, I think we could simply state that they commented to avoid the misperception of summarizing someone's language that Michael's referring to. But I worry, as you do, Dan, when we don't note it here in the public comment on non-agenda items, then we have no record to just quickly look back at to see what they were here to comment on, so.
Well, so what I pointed out was that we would say the subject, the name and the subject.
Oh, okay.
But no effort would be made to summarize the comments.
We would note the subject?
The subject.
Oh, okay, I would be okay with that then.
So
Yeah.
Dan, I have a quick question and clarification. Should we be talking about that now, or just what should be fixed in?
Fair enough. We shouldn't be talking about that now. We should
Thank
be
you.
talking about just what's in the minutes. Thank you for catching that, Mike. Are there any other changes to the minutes? The only other one I had was on package page 5, where the motion for the discussion comes after the discussion. So it just needs to be moved up. Motion be it resolved, the Greytown Council hereby reaffirms the rules for the town council. It sort of happens after the discussion. That's the reason why we had the discussion. It just needs to be flipped around. Not a big issue.
Okay.
Those are the only ones that I had. Any others?
I had none.
All right. Let's vote then. Mike?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Moving on to our next item is the report from the town manager.
Thank you. Bear with me while I just bring my screen up here. And so the first item that I wanted to bring up, just so our facilities director can go home for the evening, our facilities director, Bo Russo, has joined us to talk about the Pennell Complex projects. Like with any construction project, it's sometimes disruptive, and it also, you're working at the mercy of contractors. And so we've had a couple of projects that have kind of abruptly started here at Town Hall or a town office that have been in the works for a while. And so I wanted to bring Mo to update the council and the public on the projects. And here's a photo of the respective projects on the slide here that Mo can talk about.
Good evening, Mo Russo, Director of Facilities and Parks. So back in September of 23, at the town meeting, the Pennell Complex bond was approved for $1 million. And in that bond was multiple projects on the Pennell campus. The most important one was the replacement of the septic system for the entire complex. So that was engineered by Goral Palmer, and J. Maxwell Trucking was awarded the bid to construct the new septic system. They were able to start last week. They've excavated so far the outfield of the softball field to create the new wastewater disposal field. That is part of phase one for them. Once they complete the disposal field, they'll be replacing the septic tank here for the town hall, and then tying that into the new field. From there, they're going to work across the backside of New Begin, installing a new forced main, pump station, and septic tank for what will serve New Begin, the Manual Arts Building, and in the future, the lab building. The lab building, Manual Arts, and New Begin are all gonna be a gravity feed system running down the driveway to the back of New Begin. And so we'll be eliminating 2 tanks in total that we currently have 4. The tanks are also smaller because our water volume is less than it was when this was operating as a school. So that will be a savings routinely over time because we won't be having to pay larger amounts to have those tanks pumped. Once those projects are completed as part of the septic part, the existing basketball court will be ripped up and we'll be gaining 15 parking spaces for the complex. So that's the kind of the septic project that Jay Maxwell is overseeing. The other project that has started up is the creation of the new basketball and pickleball court, and those are going in place of where the volleyball court was. Maine Tennis and Track was our low bidder and best overall bid on that one. They initially were telling us that they'd be starting in October, and we were pleasantly surprised to hear that they could squeeze us in sooner. So their excavation contractor is here currently to do the gravel base, and from there they will start constructing the rest of the basketball court. So those are kind of the two projects that have kind of started up right now that are going on simultaneously. Then the next project is also the Manual Arts conversion, and that's going to add the public bathrooms that we are lacking for the complex. They'll be open to the public for a controlled period of time when that project's complete. But in addition to them being public bathrooms, it satisfies the deficiency for the recreation program, because we're very deficient in restrooms for that program on the campus. They overflow into having to use the bathrooms here during summer camp, so this will alleviate them having to come over to here at all, and they'll be able to safely go and use the facilities without having to cross the driveway back and forth to the gym. So those are the 3 major parts of the Pennell Complex bond project. And so that's kind of where we are currently, where the projects have started. They are estimated to be complete, the septic project and the basketball court project around November. So if things are timed right, we won't be without a basketball court for very long, which will be nice, so.
I have a question.
Kristen?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So I'm just curious, will the softball field be functional for softball and Little League season this spring? Will it be reseeded and growing by then? I don't know what the plan is around that.
Yep, so the reason they started with that first was they do need the grass seed to take.
Right.
So that is the plan, is as soon as they are complete, they'll seed it. And we should have grass start to grow now, and we should be all set for the spring.
Okay, all right. I know frost is coming, so curious about that.
Any other question? I think I had a couple of calls about the basketball courts and noise in the evening and after night. Am I correct in understanding that we're not going to have lights for the basketball, pickleball courts at this time? Is that correct?
We're not moving forward with that aspect of the project currently. We'll evaluate after this next summer.
Yeah, great. I think that neighbors will appreciate that sort of slow, working into it to see what happens. Thank you. Thanks, appreciate that.
I'll just add to your point, we are concerned, there's other communities that have added pickleball courts, and then they have noise complaints from neighbors. So it's a popular amenity, and telling Lonnie at Lonnie Dogs today about the projects he said that was a big thing when tennis became big and they put tennis court in and everybody was morning, noon, and night, you couldn't get access to the tennis courts. And so I'm sure this will be a busy place once those pickleball courts are in. So hopefully it will not be too disruptive to the neighbors of the complex.
Yeah, New Gloucester has a couple pickleball courts at their Rose Station fields. It's in a fairly rural space, so I don't think there's many neighbors complaining about noise. But I've been spending some time there with my children doing soccer, and you can hear the pickleball, but it's really not. It becomes kind of white noise after a while. Although I don't live near the pickleball court, so but I'm hoping it's something people will get used to.
Yeah.
Are there hours for when people are allowed to use the basketball courts right now?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
supposed to be from dawn to dusk, pretty much.
Don't do that.
And that's it is posted, I believe, on
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. I guess that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us, Molly.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a few other updates. So one of the other important items that I know the council's been talking about for a while is a transfer station drainage project. And I tried to get that project expedited, and thankfully with the support of our public works staff, we were able to, and here's a few pictures. We're adding essentially 100 feet of drainage trench to be able to put that in. There may have been 20 feet that existed. It was a really small drainage, and so we know exactly why it never drained. It was undersized from the minute they put it in. And it actually, I've learned that it didn't exist as part of the project. They added it after the fact when the transfer station was redone. So we're gonna have about 100 feet of drainage pipe with a 15-inch perforated pipe culvert underground with a backfilled with gravel and covered with landscape fabric to prevent silt from getting into the underdrain into the pipes. And so this project has all been done by our public works staff who have had experience doing it in other parts of town before. And so we're really pleased that they were able to complete this. The weather worked out perfect. They started this project yesterday and they were able to complete it today. They did raise the storm drain up a little bit. So that's going to be, and as you can see, they prepped for pavement, and then here's the final project. So it's all cleaned up and ready to go. So hopefully this will eliminate any future drainage issues to this extremely visible piece of property, and hopefully prevent any further damage to buildings and things of that. So I know this has been a long-awaited project, and I was glad we were able to expedite it with the public works staff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for
That's
that.
great. A lot of people will be happy about
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
Yes, tomorrow.
Thank them
Huge,
too.
huge sinkhole there.
Yes, tomorrow morning it'll be, the next project we'll have to tackle at the transfer station is the roof.
The overhang.
The
Yes.
snow,
Yes.
the
That's
snow
long
on the roof.
overdue.
So that's
Yeah.
something, as you can see, based on what Mo told you today, there's a lot of projects on his plate. Some major ones that are more critical, so we're trying to do the more critical ones. This one also was hugely credited to our new town engineer, Mike Thomas, who was able to help us kind of engineer this project really quickly
Awesome.
versus having to hire an outside engineer. So it was a small enough project that we were able to engineer it quickly with support of public works staff. So
Yeah, I was going to ask about traffic necessities to go around it, but it was done in a day. So.
yeah, it was done in 2 days. So they did the work yesterday, and so we spent the last couple of weeks planning this out to try to expedite it, given the continued. We had the last drain cleaned, and that helped a little bit, but it was a system that just
Too
wasn't
small to begin with.
too small. So we have a much bigger system, and we hope that it will not overflow again. So
Thank
the-
you and them for getting it done.
Yes, glad we could. So the other item I just wanted to update everyone, we have an item related to it on the agenda today, which is the updating of the tax due dates. But the revaluation project has been completed, and today the assessor set the new tax rate. We had estimated it at $960, but with some of the adjustments as part of the revaluation process, it's been set to $970. And this is down from the previous tax rate of $1518, but we had, as part of the budget with the increases in the school budget and county tax, we had a proposed tax rate of 1573. So it's a significant reduction from the proposed tax rate with the revaluation. And there's actually a typo on my PowerPoint that the tax due dates are going to be October 30th, not October 20th, October 30th, 2024, and April 1st of 2025. And that we're amending this evening the due date for the October 30th. And the town ran into a similar situation to this with the delayed budget last year.
Yep.
So hopefully, going forward, we'll have it out and people can be used to the normal due dates that the town had in the past.
I'm pleased we're up to a 100% assessment ratio. Also.
Yeah, so that's the other thing is we have a 100% assessment ratio, which allows the town to, or residents, property owners to benefit from the full homestead and veterans exemptions, where at sometimes the town hasn't, we've been at risk for not being able to. So now we're in a better place where a lot of data has been updated and the assessor can hopefully make tweaks as they need to be able to adjust in the future rather than to do a major project like this. So there's that. And then I wanted to mention the town council vacancy. The chair and I had talked about a process. He had notified us of his resignation effective September 12th. And so as once the chair gets the head nod from everybody about this process, Kyle's prepared to release the applications this evening on the website. The applications will be available on our website with a due date of October 17th. And the process that the town used in the past was to use the volunteer application. And so that will be linked. So that's available right now for those watching. They can get the volunteer application. And then we're proposing a town council workshop on November 12th to review the applications. And if a consensus is reached by the councilors as part of the workshop, then we'll have a fill-in-the-blank council order on the 12th agenda, on the town council agenda later that evening, where we can appoint that person. And once they're appointed, the clerk can administer the oath immediately that evening, following the approval. So that's the process that the chair worked on, and it pretty much mimics and mirrors the previous process that the council had in the past. And that's all, other than the department reports, which were included in the council agenda. I don't have anything else to report this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Well, Michael's done a good chunk of my report.
I apologize.
That's all right. I think like he said, the process for selecting someone to fill Matthew's seat is pretty straightforward. I think that this timeline's certainly very doable. The only caveat might be is if in that meeting on the 12th, we find we need more time, that would be okay. We might be seating Matthew's replacement at our first meeting in December instead of that meeting. Remember too that we only have that one meeting in November because of the election.
Could I ask a question?
Certainly.
Would we be open, if we do need more time, would we be open to having a special meeting in between those two to expedite the process?
We could, we could seat the person at the meeting or at our first meeting in December. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's only 2 weeks, it's not.
but we could certainly do that if the majority
It's
wants
really
to do that.
It's 3 weeks.
But if you wanted to have like a meeting, say on the 19th,
Yeah,
we could have a special meeting on the 19th.
Right.
yeah, I mean, that certainly can be Plan B. If we don't reach an agreement on the 17th, then we can pick a date for a meeting before
Yeah.
the meeting in
Well,
December.
I suppose we can address that if the need
Yeah.
arises, but I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, no, that's, I think, doable.
I just had a question on the timeline. I thought he said we would pick on the 12th, is that what he said?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then swear him in on the 12th as well?
Yeah, so if the,
Well, we would have a workshop prior to our meeting to go over the applications.
Okay.
so there'd be a workshop and essentially if there was a consensus, then the council would have that consensus, and I'd have a fill-in-the-blank council order prepared where you could fill in the appointment of a person.
For the meeting.
For that meeting later that evening.
Okay.
And once that is approved by the council, that person can be sworn in immediately after the approval. The clerk would be prepared to do that, and they could join us for the rest of the meeting. Or if the council wanted to wait to a whole nother meeting, they could do that too.
Okay, all right, because then we said something about December, and that's why I'm getting confused, so.
Oh,
okay.
Dan, yeah, well, go ahead, you can explain.
He mentioned
Sorry,
if
I
they,
don't
You
mean
guys,
to.
Okay,
do I need to be here?
you can explain.
All right, okay.
Yeah, no, it's just to allow us more time, but Krista proposed that we have a special meeting instead of waiting, and that would be fine too.
Okay, all right,
We'll cross that bridge if we need to when we get there.
thank you.
Council correspondence and committee reports. Start with you, Mike.
You know, the correspondence are the same ones that I think we've all been getting, and you said you would speak about it tonight, so, as far as correspondence go, nothing new. And then, committees, you know, I, went to my first finance committee, this afternoon, where we're still trying to figure out exactly, how to move forward with a couple things. I think that we will figure out, the best way to, look at these new reports and come to that. And then, the only other committee is one that I just sat in on with you, last week, and, just starting to learn more stuff, so.
The planning
That's it.
board.
Planning board, yes, sorry, planning board, yes, so,
Okay,
that's it.
thank you. Krista?
Yeah, so I think we all had an email from a gentleman proposing that we come up with a town flag, which I
Yes.
thought was interesting.
Oh, I missed that one.
Yeah, and which I'd be happy to consider. And then I also had an interaction with a representative who, or excuse me, a resident who just wanted to relay that they had a good experience with our appraisal firm and appealing their revaluation and getting some amendments to that revaluation. I know we've all been hearing from a lot of individuals who have been a little frustrated with the process, but I want to recognize there's been some positive feedback also. That's all I had for correspondence. Committee reports, Ordinance Advisory Committee is, we met on the 3rd as part of our council workshop, and then we need to reconvene just to touch base on that. We don't have a firm date for reconvening on that yet. And then the Blueberry Festival will be meeting on September 23rd. And this afternoon, September 17th, GPCOG Executive Committee reconvened after a summer recess. We had a full-day retreat from 9 to 1 where we went over, we welcomed several new members and also went over the FY25 work plan for GPCOG, and as they're implementing the newly approved 5-year strategic plan that the Assembly approved in May. One of the highlights from that work plan is really an expanded offering of services to member municipalities, and I just want to highlight some of the things we could potentially be taking advantage of as part of our dues. They offer facilitation services for things like retreats that we will be doing, and also any other item that might come up. There's land use planning we could have them work on, some of the MyoVision and data collection for infrastructure work. And they're also in particular looking to start tailored support. So if we have something arise where we need research and we don't have capacity here on staff, they're really looking to beef up those services. And they're also going to be implementing some trainings and workshops, not only for councils and select boards, but also for members of committees who might be serving in an advisory role for the work we do here at council. So I think as we're working on the goals we identify as part of our retreat later this next month, and also just the work we continue to do. We really should have GPCOG in the back of our mind as a resource for expanding any capacity we have here in Town Hall, but also just as a sounding board for helping us work through issues. We pay dues. They have really professional staff members who understand extremely complex issues, and I think we just need to keep them in mind as a resource.
Good to know.
Yeah,
Good, thank you.
sure.
Ann?
And under correspondence, Mary Sweeney Underwood is back doing Nordic walking behind Pennell, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, right back behind us, 9 a.m., starts at 9 a.m. She's always happy to teach people how to use trekking poles properly, and just love that she's back out and about again. I also want to share that, I think we may have mentioned this in past meetings, but Gray and New Gloucester were able to get a $20,000 Community Connector pilot project grant, which is sort of a partnership under the Governor's Cabinet on Aging, an age-friendly plan, and Maine's 5 area agencies on aging. So that enabled the hiring of 2 part-time positions which have been filled, and they're preparing to get underway. Their role is sort of broadly to help connect older residents to services that they need in order to allow, to live more comfortably in their homes in the community. And that could be, for example, instead of just saying, oh, we should call Opportunity Alliance or Southern Maine Area Agency, that they would actually help them navigate getting access to the services they need through those agencies. So that's, I think, a really positive thing. And I guess we can get, maybe in our next newsletter, get that information published. That would be great.
They're going to come to a meeting. I met with them as well.
Okay.
They're going to come to a meeting to present
Perfect.
what they do
Yeah,
as well.
That's great. That's awesome. The committee reports resiliency. Heather Hunt from the Cumberland County Soil and Water Conservation District put together a timeline for the townwide watershed management plan, and also we've signed an agreement with her, with Cumberland County Soil and Water for their services under the Community Action Grant that the Resiliency Committee worked on. Mike Thomas, our town engineer, will serve as the staff liaison to that project, to that watershed management plan project, until or unless another staff person can be found. So that's going to be really helpful. I also helped Michael with an application to GPCOG for a resiliency fellow, which was part of our vision under that Community Action Grant, and that's been submitted. If approved, that would start in January, and the committee meets next Monday. The Village Transformation Project, the principal group, our consultants will come to the council at our next meeting on October 1st at a workshop, and to share the updated version of the plan. And I'm really excited about that. I think it looks really great at this point. Michael, I know, has been sharing the updated version with affected business owners, and he'll continue to work on that. And Vision Zero, GPCOG had initially decided that they were too busy to write a grant on behalf of the towns involved in the current Vision Zero process. And Michael and I were kind of considering with New Gloucester about forging ahead on our own and just writing it ourselves. And ultimately, we decided we had too much going on in Gray to take the lead on writing a grant. But then GPCOG reached out and said they would write a small grant for a few participating towns. And with Michael's approval, they went ahead and applied. The grant was submitted, and if it's awarded, Gray's portion wouldn't exceed $40,000 or so, but it could be used for things like gateway treatments, intersection bump outs, curb extensions, eliminating a slip lane, or crosswalk improvements. So that's within the village. So I think that could be really positive. It'll be months before we know if it's approved.
Just a quick point of information, could you explain what Vision Zero is?
Oh, Vision Zero is really a global effort. I think began in Sweden to try to make sure that there would be no more traffic fatalities or injuries through improvements to things like roadways and increasing availability of sidewalks and things like that.
Particularly pedestrians, right?
Bikes and pedestrians, yes, but also vehicles. Because if you slow traffic down, it's, people are less likely to die in a traffic accident, even if they're behind the wheel. I believe our last meeting, I've been on the advisory panel for this, and I believe our last meeting is tomorrow. CTAC, I've attended my first meeting as liaison. The committee, again, didn't have a quorum, hasn't had one since it was reestablished. We talked about that in the workshop earlier, and I think the recommendation will be to just sunset it for now, pending further community interest in serving on the committee. I did want to highlight that last month, LD 1967, which is an act to support municipal franchise agreements, took effect. So this was a bill that was passed in the last legislative session. It took effect in August. The effort to pass the bill was led by the Maine Community Media Association. Among other things, this bill prohibits a video service provider from offering or providing its services within a municipality unless it has entered into a franchise agreement or a contract with the municipality and for offering video services. Spectrum has been operating in Gray without a franchise agreement for years, and as a small town, it's been tough for us to have the legal firepower to force them to the table. Gray is one of a consortium of towns working with GPCOG on this issue, but the LD 1967 will provide us the whole consortium effort with new teeth. So I just wanted to let people know about that. And that was actually one of the reasons why CTAC was reestablished, was to support the town's negotiations with GPCOG on that issue, but it seems like that's been largely resolved. And in any case, we don't really have the horses on the committee to provide us with a lot of insights on that. Lastly, open space. Big shout out to volunteer and GIS whiz Al Schaefer, who's created a detailed layered map of the town for the committee, where it's possible for us to view by, just as an example, tree growth or wetland areas, among other things. And the map has all these different layers on it, which will be a helpful tool for us going forward as we look at parcels to try to acquire, or to, corridors to establish. So we're really excited about that. He just unveiled that at the last meeting. So things are going well. Lots of work happening.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for all that you do. It's a lot. It really is. And I don't think people realize how much time you actually put in for all these committees. And, it's appreciated.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
She's a huge help to me as well.
For myself, I heard from people that other people have mentioned, so I won't repeat those here. I heard from a Jesse Reich, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, who was interested in information about Matthew Seat. So that was a welcome email. I also heard from Gerald Fawcett from Deer Acres. There is a meeting planned between the Deer Acres Association and the town staff to basically bring some structure, I guess, to the discussion about what can happen there. I also heard from Fran Monroe, who sent me an email earlier today and asked me to read it tonight at tonight's meeting, so I'll do that now. I received it today. She writes, at the last council meeting, a new zoning map was presented. There was conversation around overlays in some districts. I'm especially interested in the Wellhead District 1 and 2. In the past, experts from many backgrounds had sufficient information to create these districts. What I would like the council to state at the council meeting is the name of the hydrologist that's been hired and the report that was given to the council for them to consider making changes to the wellhead. I would like to read this information and ask that it will be made available to me. Although we need to grow our community, I do not believe we should be doing so at the risk of damaging our water supply. Maybe this is what the council wants to do so that we can hook up with Portland water supply. Please read my letter at the meeting. I'm unavailable this evening as I have a prior commitment. Fran Monroe, a 50-year resident of Gray. And I did write to Fran saying that I would read the letter tonight and that I would get back to her in the next day or two with answers to her questions. The planning board met on the 12th to discuss a subdivision over on Mail Road. Well, one of the things that the developer asked a waiver for was sidewalks. The planning board didn't allow a waiver for sidewalks, citing that sidewalks have a lot of value for helping to build a neighborhood, in a sense, a community there, as well as the fact that while this community is isolated from any other sidewalks, they still may be of value in the future. They did, however, work with the developer to create a solution for sidewalks similar to what we used on Woodcock Drive for the older section of that when the developer came in and wanted to make some changes to the street ordinance for that development. The next planning board meeting, I'm not sure exactly when that is, will be next month. The next ZBA meeting will be this month on the 25th at 7 p.m. I'd like to thank Tamara Lee Pinard for her service on the planning board. She's moved out of town. The planning board now has just enough members to meet. I've tried to think of another way to say this, but we would love to have people come and volunteer for this committee and for the Zoning Board of Appeals. I know those two topics sometimes make people a bit anxious, thinking I'm not expert in these things, how could I help out? But we have the professional staff. It's very much a team effort. We have the experienced members of the planning board who are always willing to help out and are very welcoming of new members. So if there's anyone there who would even like to come to a meeting or have a discussion about what the requirements are, I'd be very happy to talk to them about it. And that's all I have for council communications.
I'd like to put one more thing. They also talked about tarring, and they had asked them to tar it in the first phase, if I remember correctly.
Yes, the developer, as is often the case, asked that they not have to put the finished coat of paving on until phase 2 of the development was built. The planning board said no and required finished paving for this first phase of development, primarily because phase 2 may never happen. And there are instances where developments have been left with really just the underlayment and not the finished paving. So that was the reason why the planning board made that decision. All right, moving on to public comments for non-agenda items. Limit 3 minutes per person. The public is invited to address the council on items of business not on tonight's agenda. We don't have anyone present with us here.
There's none online.
There's no one online. So we will close public comment for non-agenda items and move on to our next item.
Can I just, I'm sorry, I forgot that I wanted to make one point about your report, the department reports, and I was really pleased to see from the sheriff's deputies that the amount of calls that they've gone out on have decreased and that crimes have generally decreased. And I just want to flag that because that's sometimes a discussion in the community about what's going on there. So, I mean, it's not nothing, but the trend is in the right direction.
Thank you for bringing that up. We have no old business before us tonight. We have no business licenses or resolves tonight, but we do have 2 orders. The first is Order 2425-2, an amendment to setting the tax due dates, interest rates for delinquent taxes, overpayment of taxes, and prepaid taxes for fiscal year 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Motion Ann, second Krista. Are there any questions to start? Michael, do you?
Sure, I'll just point out the amendment is simply to adjust the tax due date for, which was originally set for October 1st of 2024. due to the delay in the revaluation project, that tax bills have not gone out yet. They will be going out soon, and the due date has been updated to be Wednesday, October 30th, and that's the only amendment.
Very good. Any questions before?
Yeah, one thing, and I don't know if this is something that we've talked about before, but when someone has a significant change in their property tax, and it goes up by a certain, percentage or dollar amount, and they haven't had the opportunity to escrow those dollars, had we ever looked at giving them a catch-up period so that they, so they wouldn't pay the penalty? Over the next 6 months, so that, for example, if their tax bill was $6,000 and now it's 10, and they have to have an additional $2,000 that they weren't prepared for. Have you ever talked about allowing those people to give them a few months to catch up on that? Has that ever been done before?
Not to my knowledge, no.
It's a good question, though, yeah.
I'm not aware of it happening in my experience in other municipalities or here. I do know that, having been personally experienced escrow changes, that typically the escrow handles. So if the tax bill is different, the escrow will work with the person to shore up the escrow. And so the mortgage company, because they're obligated to pay taxes to ensure that the mortgage is whole, they would pay the taxes, and your escrow may operate in a deficit or things of that nature until you work with them on a plan to catch that up.
Yeah.
So that process might be handled there.
That was my understanding of how escrows work, that they're obligated to pay the bill they receive, and then you make that difference up over the course of your payments.
So the difficulty might be for people who no longer have a mortgage,
Yeah.
and weren't planning on having to come up with that kind of money so fast.
Yeah.
And I'm probably thinking of my dad used to call it his escrow account. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though he owned the house, he would put, $300 or whatever it was, a month away in there. And, when these come out quickly like that, I didn't know if it's something, I just, it's something we could talk about in the future, but I'm just, I just, especially with our older population, down on the lakes, who might have gotten hit hard, I just want to have that taken into consideration before we,
Yeah, I mean, the interest rate we charge is, I think, statutorily set.
Correct.
So we don't have any control over that. So I wonder, because I think the idea is a good one, certainly. I just wonder if we're bound to, I wouldn't want to charge, if we're letting people kind of pay it over time, kind of set up a payment plan like you might do with your doctor's office when you have unexpected medical costs. I wouldn't want to be charging them this interest rate, but I don't know if we would be legally required to do something like that. That would be a question I would have, yeah.
Yeah, I think we are legally required, but
Right.
we'll work with anybody to develop a payment plan to avoid any liens or foreclosures.
Right.
So if people have concerns, and then if people do have affordability issues, there's the property tax abatement program through general assistance that they could apply for as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good reminder.
Very good. And I think that, well, we'll just have to wait and see, I guess, but it is transition time, and that is always the hardest, I think, for people when we have instances like this. If anything, it's one good reason to stay as current as possible with our valuation, so that we don't have this sort of snap forward effect on people.
It's tough when property values went rocketing upward in such a short amount of time.
It is, it's been decades actually since we've had to deal with this kind of housing market.
Right. And if we want to honor the exemptions that people can have, the state requires that we meet the valuations that align with how they've set our town. So that's one of the reasons we pursued
Yep.
the statistical revaluation.
Anything else before we vote? All right, we'll do the roll call. Ann?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
Mike?
yes.
I'm also a yes. The next Let me see, let me get back to my agenda here. The next order is Order 2425-9, an amendment to the Municipal General Assistance Ordinance. And that's on package page 29. Be it ordained, the Greytown Council amends the Municipal General Assistance Ordinance by repealing and replacing the MMA Model Ordinance and associated appendices A through H of the exiting ordinance, which shall be effective from October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2025. This is the first and final reading, September 17th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Krista? Michael, do you want to?
Sure, I'll just quickly explain. Typically, on an annual basis, the appendices need to be updated. So I'm sure those of you who have been here before, the appendices as part of the model municipal general assistance ordinance need to be updated because the amounts change on an annual basis depending on what's happening with inflation and finances in the world. And then also the town had previously adopted MMA's model ordinance. And so MMA provided, as you can see from the memo, they provided an updated model ordinance, or the state general assistance department provided MMA's updated general assistance ordinance, updated as of this month. And so we since the town has adopted the model ordinance, we chose to update the ordinance as well with the model ordinance changes, along with the appendices. So that's why that's here. The state does require us to have the appropriate ordinance in place. And so since the town's been using the model ordinance, the best thing for the town to do is to continue to adopt the updated model ordinance as it's updated.
Any questions?
Yeah, so my only question on this is that if we're going to do that, which I agree with, then why do we need to change this every time? If we say if we're gonna use their ordinance, then why wouldn't it always just be their most updated ordinance?
Because the text is adopted, so procedurally, I think we have to update it when it's, I can ask legal counsel if we're able to say that we will always adopt the MMA model ordinance, if that's what you're saying.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can see procedurally what that is, and I do know that most municipalities have to adopt the change in the appendices every year. That typically happens as well. So I'm not sure if you can give a blanket approval to those.
Those amounts change every year
Yeah.
from the state, so I think we have to adopt the appendices.
It'd be interesting to find out.
Well, and the only reason I'm thinking is this, is what happens in the chances that we miss it? We forget to do it. Something happens. If we just always say we're just using their rules and whatever their rules are, we're following, then we wouldn't need to do this and there's no chance
Well,
to get lost,
I think
you know?
part of the issue is that each year that you seat a new council, so you have a new group of people, and one council can't bind a future council to a particular course of action. So I think Michael will find out that legally we're required to pass this each time it comes before us.
Each time it's
I
updated.
don't think there's much chance of us missing it, as it's a formal process that happens to all municipalities across the state.
So that brings up my second question. If that's, I was kind of anticipating if that's the case, then shouldn't we be voting on whether we're gonna accept them every year? So going back to square one, if you said that, the council can't be, forced to, then shouldn't we start and say that this year we're gonna use MMAs?
That's
not
what we
just-
did.
Okay, I thought you
think in
said
the
we were
motion-
only gonna change A through H.
No, so
No.
this year is the MMA updated the general assistance ordinance. It's not updated every single year.
Okay.
I don't remember what the last one was, what year it was, but it was a number of years. It wasn't every year, so they don't update the model ordinance.
Okay.
The general assistance ordinance appendices, which are
Okay.
A through H, are updated on an annual basis and need to be adopted by the town council or the legislative body.
And perhaps I wasn't clear when I read it, but it does say replacing the MMA model ordinance and associated appendices.
Okay, all right. And I should have read that too. I missed that. That's what okay.
Okay, good, no, doesn't hurt to ask. We want to make sure we do it the right way around. Yes, Krista?
Just one clerical change here. On the agenda, we mentioned that this is order 2425-9, but on packet page 29,
It does say
on the motion,
2425-8.
it's 2425-8.
Good catch.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I've got to just clarify with Brett. I think our last item with the clerk, our last item was, it's probably going to be 8, but I just have to double check. So I think it's labeled appropriately on the document.
On the motion.
But labeled incorrectly on the agenda.
Right. I don't think it affects our vote. Just when you're
Yeah,
filing
it's-
it clerically.
I just looked back at our
yeah.
last meeting, and the correct is 8, so it's just labeled incorrectly on the agenda. We
Okay.
apologize for that oversight.
No, that's fine. I just
No.
wanted to highlight it in case it affects how you file things.
Well, and let's just make it doubly clear. So are you willing to amend your motion to change that to order 2425-8?
Yes.
And are you willing to?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. We'll just eliminate any possible question there.
And then before anyone leaves, I do have this, the state requires that the
Sign
municipal
this.
officers sign this new ordinance adoption, so.
So no getting out of Dodge.
Yes.
until you sign the paperwork. All right, are there any other comments or discussion? We'll go to roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Krista?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. All right. We are at that point in our meeting when we would allow continuation of public comments. We have no referrals tonight. Referrals are our old council to-do list, if you will, and things that we're referring to staff to do for us. And the next town council workshop will be October 1st at 5:30 PM, and our meeting will follow afterwards at 7. We have no executive session tonight, so I will take a motion, unless there's any other business, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I take a motion to adjourn.
I'll
Moved.
second.
Mike, second. Ann, is there any objection to unanimous consent?
No.
We are adjourned at 7:59.